We have another wireless access point installation for you guys. This is just a small portion of the overall structured cabling project we are doing for our client, which expands over 3 warehouses. Today we are just focusing on replacing the cabling that feeds the access points in these tiny homes. Let me show you how we did it. Before our implementation, the uplink for this area came from a point-to-point bridge from the warehouse to the tiny home. Then from the point-to-point bridge, there was a cable that ran down to a switch inside this box. It acted as a mini IDF. All of the access points inside of the tiny homes connected back to the switch inside of this box. From here, the cable was ran under this deck through a large piece of flex conduit. And then the Cat5 cable was freely ran on the ground to each tiny home. Once the cable got closer to the tiny home, it came up the outside wall where it was secured by some cable raceway and eventually made its way inside. As you can tell in this video, I already removed the old solution, but at least you guys have an idea of what was done previously. Let's talk about the cabling solution that we installed, starting from the IDF, and we'll work our way to the access point inside the tiny homes. Our cables terminated in the patch panel on the next available ports, and it was patched into the open switch ports. From the IDF, the 5 cables go up into the warehouse rafters. It travels for a little bit, eventually making its way down some conduit that we installed. The EMT conduit is then coupled into some flex conduit, so that we could get around the other boxes mounted on the wall. We cleaned it up nicely, and the flex conduit makes its way to this box, which houses the path to get our cables outside. Here we are on the other side of the wall. The cables are ran through the hole we drilled out and terminated to keystones. We decided to terminate the cable here because in case the tiny homes ever get moved or the cables outside get damaged, at least the cable up to this point from the IDF is good. So these cables are coupled together. Each of the cables with the RJ45 ends are ran into each tiny home. The cables go down this flex conduit along the curb, following the electrical cables. It goes through this drain and then underneath the tiny home, and then the flex tubing comes up into this box. This box holds all of the cabling and eventually distributes out to the rest of the tiny home from this flex conduit. You can tell that this is a pretty unique situation and a pretty unique run, but we're proud of how this turned out, and the flex conduit and the box here looks really great. So from this point, the cables are sent out. Some go down to the south side, some go down to the north side of the building. The first cable that gets distributed out heads out to the next tiny home. It goes down the flex conduit, then back up the wall, and the cable makes its way inside. Here's the cable path for the other 2 tiny homes in the other direction. It goes underneath the first tiny home. It breaks off from this other box, and the cable comes out, goes underneath the next tiny home, and the process repeats where we get to this side. It goes up the wall. There's a box here so that we can poke through the inside of the building, and from the inside of the building you can see our cable come through, and that's the end of the cable with the RJ45 on it. Here's a closer look at the entry into the tiny home. We test each cable, making sure that we have full connectivity back to the switch and making sure that we have PoE and we're coming out at 1000 megs and full duplex. Finally, we put the AP back where we found it and we plug the cable in. Now each of these tiny homes have full Wi-Fi coverage with proper cabling back to their IDF. We're glad we're able to help our client out with installing professional cabling to support the wireless coverage for their tiny homes. It's always a good idea for clients to have professional cabling installed, especially when it's visible to their customers. This was just a portion of the scope of work we are doing for our clients. They have been great to work with, and we're glad to have partnered with them on this project. It's been a lot of fun for us. I want to thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you on the next project.